Good evening, Danvers. Good afternoon, Danvers. Whenever time it is, we're running our show at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday, October 20th, because of our sequence of events that are going to be happening today. Welcome to our local broadcast. I'm Mark Zubarek, and this program is providing a forum for our resident commentators and meant for the Danvers residents. Today we do not have a added commentator, but I will handle the show today. The agenda and opinions are solely by the topics of the town host and commentators when they appear. The spread of socialism or communism starts when people are silenced. Free speech is the first censorship and it is our enemy. Free speech is the first freedom citizens lose. Censorship is our enemy. The best way we know to combat this is to continue to report the truth. This last week, I've had the pleasure of attending the celebration of the Danvers Archival Center 50th anniversary on October 15th. Presentation and speakers to honor the archives were at 1:30 p.m. So I just want to go through. Richard Trask has been a good commentator on the history in Danvers and the North Shore community. And I just wanted to recognize that this celebration was for the Archival Center, and the name of the dedication of the Richard B. Trask Library, which is the archival center downstairs next to the Gordon Room in the children's area down in the library itself. So it was a tremendous turnout from very many friends, relatives, and political figures of the town. So I'd just like to go through and just give you a little flavor of who was there and what was really the issue that was being celebrated. And what it comes down to, it was Richard Trask. Here we have the alarm list was there to provide security to the library. And it was a very well attended meeting of the Alarm List Company, which Richard was part of the founding fathers of the organization. The next slide shows our school committee chairman, Eric Crane, and myself. I came and recorded portions of the library dedication meeting, but I was very happy to see that DCAT had a videographer right there at the entire meeting, and that will be shown to you on a separate episode on not the topics of the town, but by the dedicated team that works here at DCAT. So the next one, we have attendance by local residents, and there were very many, and I think it was over 100 people in that room. Next slide, please. David McKenna, who was part of the alarm list, and he has been a fixture with Richard Trask for many years in regard to the alarm list and also the town archives. The next slide shows family, and this is Richard Trask's daughter, and they were in attendance. And Nicole Bach, the director of the library, presented the dedication, and I will have a little clip at the end of this slideshow. And she was there to dedicate or announce the dedication of the archives as a Richard Trask library. Next, please. This is our director of the president of the Danvers trustees, library trustees, and Miss Fiore, and she was there. Joan Lovely came with a message from the state legislature, from the state senate, and she read that and dedicated that to Richard Trask. Sally Kearns, state representative, was there to represent the legislature on the other end of the spectrum. And also, we also had Billy Clark, and he used to be a salesman, not a salesman. He has been a selectman, town meeting member. He has been working with the archival center and the library, and he has been a lot of functions in this town, but he's also one of the last farmers in our community. So Billy had some very nice words to say in regard to the dedication of the library. David McKenna represented the alarm list as well, and he made a dedication to the Richard Trask Library. Next one, Dan Bennett read a message from the Board of Selectmen. He's the chairman of the Board of Selectmen in the town of Danvers. And a close relative to Richard Trask, it was there, Gardner Trask, who's one of our selectmen in town. And I'm not used to using select board anymore. It's still a selectman. Next, and now we have our friend and recognized at the ceremony, Richard Trask. Now, he was on for a long time speaking in a recollection of the founding of the archives when he was a young man, and that was back 50 years ago. And at that time, I was not even involved in politics. I came in a few years later, and I still remember Richard being active with the library trustees and the archive center. Next item we have is there's a Richard Trask Library plaque that's going to be mounted in the lower level of the library next to the children's section and the Gordon room, back entrance from the library. Now, I'm not going to read it. I think that's self-explanatory. If you want a copy of that, I can provide that later on, but that's going to be mounted very soon. Now, we have a very short clip that I borrowed from our friends here at DCAT, and if we can just show that as a movie or a moving moment at the dedication of his library orientation and celebration. So there we go. Now Richard has been a fixture down at that level for a long time.
I feel I have a real responsibility, as will the archivist to come, and that is we're the repository of the memory of the town of Danvers. So these things are the heroic things, but we also remember the
these, but I
people
think
who
everybody knows
made this country
that
wonderful.
Richard
And
was
it's been an
very
honor
flattered
to,
and
serve
very
as
happy to
archivist.
receive
I
the
hope the
honor,
archives
and
continues for
deservedly so.
centuries to
So
go.
Richard Trask,
And I
thank you very
so
much, and
bottom
welcome
of my
to the
heart
next
for,
50
this
years of your
wonderful,
contribution to
program
the town of
And
Danvers.
if you're still awake,
Okay, we can go to the
please
next
go into the
clip, I
archives,
think.
and thank you.
I think we're done with this. We lost the voice, but that voice is always heard. Anybody that's interested in finding out what the Richard Trask Library Archive Center is, go to the back of the library down by the children's entrance, and he is usually there 4 days a week, and I think he takes 1 day off. So we'll be there to meet with him, but just to see what has been preserved, and a lot of the historical information is there. All right, so now that we have that pictures and clips and the wrap up, what I like to do is, being in a election period that we're in, I would like to just go over some of the contested races. And everyone is contested except for one, I believe, that's on our sample ballot. And the only one that's not on there is the Attorney General. I think that's being uncontested. So if we can show the sample ballot. This is what you'll see when you get to the ballot box or voting center. And one of the things that I like to bring up is that the sample ballot has been available, and you can recognize that by asking for it and studying it if you need to. But as there's really only, for Danvers, there are 3 issues that need to be addressed in this election. One of them is the highest office in the North Shore and the U.S. Congress is Seth Moulton versus Bob May. Seth Moulton is the Democrat on the ballot, and Bob May is the Republican. And I went to a Seth Moulton town hall meeting, and I would just like to run a short clip that I reserved from the meeting that was held in Newburyport, as a matter of fact. And the meeting was held at the City Hall in their auditorium. So we can run that, please, and we'll go through there. Here's a brief introduction to
project. So again, so thankful for the conversation.
And we have Seth Moulton at the table,
He is a Marine veteran,
at the
father,
podium.
and a Democrat. We are so
And
lucky
what
to
I
have him
wanted
right
to
before us.
do is,
Please welcome Congressman.
no, this is not Seth Moulton, but he's coming on. And there was one question that really raised the issue for me. And what I like to do is just run that. So Seth was there, his ceremonial backdrops and everything else. But I also, can we run the voice on this one? I can't hear it.
6 years. Why won't you debate?
Back up.
Why don't you hide? You see that we're doing in-person town halls again? Yeah, me too. But you haven't done a debate in 6 years. Why won't you debate me, Seth? Why don't you hide what you were afraid of? You reached out to the campaign manager, Matt, by email, by text messaging, by any way you can think of other than Aldous Lamp and smoke signals. Why can't we debate that? I think everybody in this room wants to see us talk about the issues, rebut many of the things that you're saying tonight. For example, you voted consistently according to the stated policy of Joe Biden 98% of the time. That's not bipartisan, Seth. That's not bipartisan. It's one of the reasons why we're in the predicament in this country that we're in today. Inflation and gas. And let's even talk about your support and encouragement of hypersexualizing small children and minors. Talk about book burning. It's not Nazi book burning, Seth. It's child pornography that we're trying to take out of elementary school libraries. And if anybody who's going, then you're not informed, because that's happening. So the question is, why don't we debate this thing? That's my question.
So I'm prepared to answer your question, although I think you should answer it for yourself. I think it's really important to have an honest debate about the real issues. A debate where we can share different views, but a debate that's based in facts. And when we can't get basic facts established, like actually I held a lot of debates just 2 years ago. A lot of debates. You can see them on YouTube. They're still there. Where? So it's been a long time since someone's actually accused me of something that's just, I mean, look, I want to have a healthy debate. That's why I'm here. That's why I was on Fox News this morning. A lot of Democrats won't even go on Fox News, because I'm ready to have a healthy debate. But I am not going to give airtime to election deniers. I'm just not going to do it, because that is not healthy.
I took the time and effort to go and film the entire town meeting speech that took over an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes. And this is the clip that I really captured because it was very important to me and to the Republican and Democrat candidates that are running for office, whether it's federal, state, or local. Now, the next day after the filming of this City Hall town meeting that was held in the City Hall itself, and I was very surprised that they permitted political demonstration and political speeches at the City Hall itself. Moulton said he wants to have a healthy debate, but he was not going to give airtime to election deniers. This has been a message that has been sent out to all of the Democrat candidates, whether it's state or federal, Seth Moulton has been using this for a while now, and Moulton also received plenty of upset responses from Monday night's audience when he said the United States does not have an open border policy. Some of the questions were very good, and they were very pointed, but they did not have an opportunity to have a debate with his contender because, I hate to say it, but he's hiding in the back room of his office, because I even went and tried to get a interview, a discussion on the show, and that was declined as well. So what I also have found is that Jeff Deal, who's the candidate for governor, and the Leah Cole Allen, who's the candidate for lieutenant governor on the Republican side, have also publicized that same speech. Democrats attack Deal over election denial. So this is a message that has been planted with the Democratic Party, and they're claiming that they will not debate or be content to stay in the background unless they go to people that are not deniers of the election. So he has argued there were flaws in the voting process in battleground states that decide the outcome, and has cited concerns about security with mail-in voting. This is what Jeff Deal has stated publicly, but the Democrats deny access to a debate because they seem to be afraid of something. The Institute said the election deniers include candidates for governor, secretaries of state, and attorney general who would, if elected, will have a great deal to say about how election in their state will be run in the future. So the candidates that we, as Danvers residents, are interested in are U.S. Congress, Seth Moulton versus Bob May, and my selection has always been the new guy on the block. Bob May will sort of attract more attention in the Congress of the United States, because Seth Moulton has been there for 10 years and, to my best recollection, has not achieved what he originally wanted. He ran at one time in opposition of Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House, and that really fell on deaf ears after he made that announcement. The Mass Senate, Joan Lovely versus Damien Anquetil. We've had Damien Anquetil on the ballot and on the show here to announce his candidacy. And I've also invited for equal time Joan Lovely as a contender for that position. She's been there for at least 10 years. And then there's the Massachusetts rep, Sally Kearns, is running on the ballot as unopposed, but what I'm being told, and we can show the sign that I have obtained from Michael Bean, Sally Kearns versus write-in candidate Michael Bean. New Issues Write-In Campaign. So we can show, there you go, there's his sign, and what we're being asked to do is vote for Michael Bean as the Republican candidate, and he's at 10 Wenham Street in Danvers, and write-in candidate for Representative 13 District, which is Sally Kearns' seat. Sally has been there now, I believe, for 4 years this year, but she was a representative back in the 90s. But there's very little activity on Michael Bean's campaign, so I just wanted to bring this up to your attention. So if you feel like there's a need for a change or a need for a Republican candidate for the House of Representatives in the state of Massachusetts, 13th District, then this is what you should do. Michael Bean, put him in as a write-in, 10 Wenham Street, Danvers, and write-in candidate for Representative 13th District. There is a space on the ballot that will allow you to fill in the circle for a write-in candidate. So those are the key races that we as Danvers residents are really interested in, and what I'm interested in. And I'll be honest with you, I don't normally endorse individuals, but I think you know that there's a movement afoot to replace some of the set in place candidates or repeat candidates for these positions, and I would strongly endorse Jeff Deal for governor, and Leah Cole Allen is our own resident of Danvers. So Allen, Deal Allen is the candidate ticket for governor in the state of Massachusetts and the town of Danvers. That's my observation. So if we go to the next clip, I believe there's a there's a picture of signs that are appearing in our location, and I have a sign here, but first let's talk about this. The Republicans in the town of Danvers, Middleton, and the North Shore have been pushing this vote Republican, and they say they had enough, vote Republican. That's the intent of some of these signs that are showing up around town. They're 4-foot by 4-foot signs, and they are really an attempt to make a change and improve the government in our communities. The next clip that I like to show is, I think that one is, okay, we have that one already. So I think we're done with the clips, but I just want to show you one other one that I have here is Miss Healy is running for governor, and I received this Maura Healey Taxpayer's Worst Nightmare. And I received it and I took it in jest as a brochure that's been sent to a lot of residents in town. And I think this was sent out by Mr. Doty when he was running for the primary for the governor's seat, Chris Doty. And you'll have more dough with Doty. That's what the message was. But this was more of a Halloween theme, and I'm just wondering, what was this all about? So let's move on. The other items that are on the ballot, and we're running into halfway already, but what I like to do is go over the 4 questions, because Those are very important for our residents, and my recommendation for all four, the vote is no. So let's go through question number 1. It is a additional tax on income over $1 million. And this proposal is a constitutional amendment. So it is not law as yet because it has to go through a constitutional change. But this would establish an additional 4% state income tax on that portion of annual taxable income in excess of $1 million. This is normally called the millionaire's tax. This income level would be adjusted annually by the same method used for federal income tax brackets to reflect increases in the cost of living. Revenues from this tax would be used, and listen to this, subject to appropriation by the state legislature for public education, public colleges and universities, and for the repair and maintenance of roads, bridges, and public transportation. Have you heard this before? 2.5 is one. The lottery is another one. Lottery is a tax. But this, the answer to this question is absolutely no, because we don't even know how the $1 million will be calculated. And what we're being told is that the interpretation by the legislature could be that it includes the value of the capital gains on your home when you sell it will be added to your salary and to increase the value of the $1 million. And you're approaching that almost all the homes in the North Shore are in the $700,000 to $1 million range. You add your income, you're over $1 million. So the answer is no. Question number 2. Law proposed by initiative petition. This proposed law would direct the Commissioner of the Massachusetts Division of Insurance to approve or disapprove the rates of dental benefit plans and would require that a dental insurance carrier meet an annual aggregate medical loss ratio for its covered dental benefit plans of 83%. The government does not belong in setting objectives for a business. Dental office is a private business. The dental office establishes rates with the commissioner already, and the insurance companies provide the background for those rates. So stay out of private business. That's none of your business of what happens with the dental office. The dental office is a private business. The proposed law would allow the commissioner to waive or adjust the refunds only if it's determined that issuing refunds would result in financial impairment for the carrier. That's a total cop-out and way out. This is one of those unintended consequences. The answer to question number 2 is no. Question number 3. Law proposed by initiative petition expanded availability of licenses for the state of alcoholic beverages, for the sale of alcoholic beverages. This is the liquor license laws that have been in place in Massachusetts forever. This proposed law would increase the statewide limits on the combined number of licenses for the sale of alcoholic beverages for off-premises consumption, including licenses for all alcoholic beverages and for wines and malt beverages that any one retailer could own or control from 9 to 12 licenses in 23, 15 licenses in 27, and 18 licenses in 2031. What are we trying to do here? Legislature is now trying to control the development and expansion of retail stores. Basically, this is your grocery stores, and they've all gone into a liquor license bonanza, and some of them have been successful, some have folded. So let's stay out of private industry, and the legislature should be ashamed of themselves. This is none of their business. If the liquor stores or liquor licenses for the grocery stores are needed, they can petition the legislature already. We in the town of Danvers have, I believe, either 12 or 15 licenses that are sitting on somebody's desk in the town hall because there is no need for what we have requested and obtained from the legislature. All it took is legislative action, and it was automatic. They got it all. So, law proposed, and this, again, this question number 3 should be a definite no. So let's keep that on your mind. The last one, and the one that has been obtained by 100,000 signatures from the general public, is, do you approve of a law summarized below, which was approved by the House of Representatives and the Senate on May 26, 2022? This law allows Massachusetts residents who cannot provide proof of lawful presence, illegal aliens, in the United States to obtain a standard driver's license or learner's permit if they meet all the other qualifications for a standard license or learner's permit, including a road test and insurance, and provide proof of their identity, date of birth, and residency. This law has been implemented by the legislature, and our legislators that have had their finger in the pie here, is meant for illegal aliens. I was going to say residents, but they're illegal aliens that want to be driving. They're driving anyway. They can obtain an international license, and it works if that's the case. But they are illegal in the state of Massachusetts. And the rub to this whole thing is that as soon as the Registry of Motor Vehicles authorizes a driver's license, they are registered to vote in wherever entity that they live in. So the problem here is that the Democrats and the state legislature is stacking the deck. So what I would recommend, and the biggest problem on this thing is the Registrar of Motor Vehicles may not ask about or create a record of the citizenship or the immigration status of the applicant, except as otherwise required by law. So they basically negated the law that's on the books, and they cannot get a real license, which I was wondering why that was instituted a couple of years ago. Now I understand why. Because there's 2 classes of driver's licenses, and each one of them registers you to vote automatically at the Registry of Motor Vehicles? The answer to this question is no. Thank you. And what I just gathered a lot of information that I've been getting at home. Massachusetts AFL-CIO, vote yes on question 1, the Fair Share Amendment. It's a rigged system, and the thing is that we have, as voters, received this document, but it does not include question 4 because time was of the essence to get the signatures. So we have the signatures, we have the petition, we have that on the ballot, and the answer continues to be no. So this is really a vote against our legislators who, in their great wisdom, have instituted these laws to benefit certain segment of our population or our business community. We need to start saying enough is enough. The answer is no. All 4 questions, the answer is no. So, we have 15 minutes. I'm running out of time, but I'd like to go into the next segment, which I prepared in regards to the school committee and the school department of the town of Danvers. And I have a new quote that I found, and I am, after awakening of the Danvers parents, taxpayers, and residents about what really matters, the quote that I have is, education is an admirable thing, but it is well to remember from time to time that nothing that is worth knowing can be taught. This was a quote by Oscar Wilde. And as you know, in our high school and college education, Oscar Wilde was a great literature that he wrote, and we all had to read it. So this quote is very important in what's going on in our community right now. Right now, our school department, our schools, and our administration in the school department are falling apart. There's a resignation of a school committee member, and I think that was something that was coming around anyway, but they should have taken steps in advance to having a vacancy at this time. We have the superintendent who resigned for medical reasons, but I think she has resigned for various other reasons, and I cannot go into those, but it's going to be part of a presentation that I'm going to later today, and it's Education Forum, What is Social Emotional Learning? That has been an issue in Danvers for many, many years, and one of the questions that I have is, this is being dictated by our Massachusetts Board of Education, and it is being endorsed by our school committees. And one of the things that I have been stressing for many, many weeks and months, basically, is who's in charge of our school department? Who's making the rules? Who is going to present our parents' options? Where are the parents? So, I have a couple of articles here, and I think we've gone over these before, but One of them is the resignation of the superintendent. There's a search committee now being endorsed by 2 school committee members. And I am wondering, there was a questionnaire that they were discussing at their last meeting, and I am going to try to obtain that because it is very interesting to hear what kind of comments the parents have had. The one thing that I'm seeing as being lacking is the involvement of the general residential community of this town, because the school is not only for the children that are going to the schools at this time, but it's also for future generations, and it is also for the past generations. We've all gone through that. So, Ms. Doherty and said that the school committee will be looking to advertise ways the community can be involved. And the only thing I heard that there was a questionnaire, and I will be asking to get that. I want to get Eric Crane and maybe one of the other new members of the school committee to the show, and just let's talk about things. What is really happening? Now, I understand that we have 5 candidates that have asked to be considered for replacing Jeff Keys as the new school committee person, but it's going to be an appointment, not an election. So I have already talked to Mr. Crane, and I said, well, you've had 3 very solid candidates over the last 3 elections. Why not approach one of them to fill that position? Because they've already expressed interest, and they have already made up their mind that they want to serve the community on the school committee. And there are very good candidates that should be considered. And I was told that Eric was not going to object to anyone that's going to request to be considered, which I guess it's his prerogative, but I think he needs to really consider the election process that has been happening in our town. So the 5 applicants are going to be interviewed and considered at an October 24th, which is on Monday of this week, of next week. And the question I raised too is, this should be done in a public session. And as far as I know, it is going to be considered, but there's also hesitation on doing it in a public session because they don't want to embarrass anyone. Well, if you want to be a school committee man, appointed, or a woman, appointed, then you need to show your cards. So, there's our infamous Danvers High School, and that has been going through a lot of gyrations. And as we talked about a week ago, no, about a month ago, the Danvers students, 2 young ladies that came to a meeting a month and a half ago and expressed their concerns about bullying, about what is really going on in the school system at the high school. They have been absent from the last meeting. I don't know why, but they should really continue this discussion because the school committee needs to hear the facts. And the facts are that the students are themselves concerned about what's going on, but nobody is listening to them. The administration just wants to go in their own path. So, and when they are not being addressed, they are disappointed in the fact that they have not been recognized as a continuous consultant, basically, to the school committee, because the school committee, I have attended many meetings, and all it is glad handling and patting themselves on the back by the administration and patting themselves on the back to the administration. And what has really happened to the Danvers education system? SEL is the objective of the Mass Board of Education. Who is really running our schools? I have presented this little dissertation. The governor now will use local community boards to continue the state's illegal actions. He has now invoked the Board of Education to promote his illegal education actions. Parents are finally objecting. When will the Danvers School declare our independence from those restrictions and the control of freedom of our students and parents? Parents do not want any more physical and moral constraints on their children. Monumental changes do not always occur with fanfare and explosive action. Sometimes they take place gradually. It is a result of actions that initially appear relatively inconsequential, but develop into extraordinary alterations in the very fabric of society. And this is our school society. The school committee has abdicated their primary mission to educate our students. Education has taken a step backwards because we have become slaves of directed actions by our appointed officials, State Board of Education. Every time I ask the question, I raise the question of why are we not more independent? I'm being told that what do you want to do? You want to abandon a funding mechanism for our schools? The Board of Education does not fund that much of our schools. It funds a small portion. The residents of this town pay for the bulk of the cost of education in this town, and we need to really count every penny that's happening. Our schools' budget right now is under the control of the school committee. It's about $45 million. But they always forget the other $25 million that the town, in their support of the facilities, the grounds, the maintenance, and the access to the schools during the winters, there's $25 million that is really recognized as support of the schools. Therefore, it is almost $80 million that our residents pay for this school department. We need better quality of education. There was a discussion in regards to MCAS scores. It was poo-pooed because it is something that they don't want to talk about. But we have no, the question that I raised many times is, why did the school population decrease the last 2-3 years? Parents removed their children from the tyranny of our tax-funded education system. How did we measure up performance? No MCAS results available. Why? When discussed, discussion is not meaningful. How did we spend our taxes on our children's education? So we have issues that we need to consider, and the school committee needs to wake up and provide a better education to our students. Where are the line teachers and parents in this formula? The parents have awakened a little bit. School departments are responsible for education and not for social experimentation. Teachers' unions need to step aside and let the teachers teach. So this is a conclusion of a speech I made a while back, but one of the things that has been expressed to me is the school committee must clearly present their intentions to educate our youth and not hide behind the social media and internet communications currently presented. Here's my infamous clip by Albert Einstein, and let's be upfront with the information on how and if the education will improve our entire community, and not only for the educators. Albert Einstein many years ago said, "I fear the day that technology will surpass our human interaction. The world will have a generation of idiots, and we're on our way. So we need to communicate, and we need to communicate face to face." So I will welcome and I will present anybody's position in regards to this education process, and I have invited many other people to the show, but I have not been able to be successful in getting them to come on because for some reason they're afraid. Why are we afraid of? We need to start talking about things, and we need to start talking about things frankly between ourselves. So the next show will be the week of the first week in November, and I believe it's November 3rd. And that will be the last show before the elections. And then we'll have a show the following week wrapping up the elections. So good night, Danvers. Thank you for listening, and hope to see you in 2 weeks. And maybe we'll have a special in between. Good night.